Welcome to Recently Logged, where this week we're talking about haunted hotels, spooky skeletons, crazy cabins, and perfect question mark period pieces. Hey, howdy, hey.
Hello.
We're back.
Here we are.
And we're recording. We totally didn't forget to plan an episode this week. We did not.
I don't understand how this keeps happening.
Last minute, and we're like, we could do a What We Watched episode.
I think literally, like, since the inception of our What We Watched episodes, we've described them as cop-out episodes.
Yeah, but, I know a lot of people who really like them. It's just funny because we usually only ever do them if we've taken a break or if we've forgotten to plan something. And, like, that doesn't happen all the time, but it happens enough that it's kind of embarrassing.
It happens more often than we'd like to admit, probably.
But yeah, we're back. Welcome to the podcast.
My name is Robbie.
And I'm Micah.
And we're talking about all the movies that we watched over the past week.
Yeah, so this is a little different than our normal episodes. If you're familiar with our regular show, we usually pick we usually pick one movie or show or whatever we're talking about that particular time and do kind of a deep dive. And then at the end, do a little thing we call the What We Watched segment, where we talk about briefly all of the things we've watched since our last episode. Well, the What We Watched episode is one where we do the same thing as the segment, but we spend longer time talking about each movie. So we just ramble more, essentially.
Wow.
So if you would like to hear insane ramblings of what we watched in the last week, which is quite a few things, all things considered, then strap yourself in.
Absolutely.
But yeah, where are we starting from this fine feathered evening?
We are starting from October 17th in the year of our Lord 2023.
Too true. And we're going to, I guess, the 23rd?
To modern day, yeah,
23rd. That's when we're recording, the 23rd. So yeah, I think we'll just dive into it. I think I'm starting us off this time.
Indeed you are.
Which is cool, fancy, fun and fancy free. And I'm starting us off with In the Mouth of Madness, 1994. John Carpenter. I watched this on the 17th. I'm not the biggest John Carpenter fan. Like, I really love The Thing, but I'm not, like, the biggest fan of Halloween or Christine or even Dark Star or Village of the Damned or, like, The Fog.
Wow.
I've seen a lot of his movies at this point.
John Carpenter's movies.
They're just not totally my thing. I really respect a lot of what he's doing, especially, like, in stuff like The Fog and Halloween and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, he's got something really cool going on, but it's not always my bag. But I had heard about this. I had seen some frames from this, mainly just Sam Neill, and I was like, ooh, Sam Neill. And I had to check it out, and then I found out that it's based on Lovecraft's work, and I was like, now I've got to check it out. That sounds super sick. And it turns out it was super sick. I really, really loved what this movie is doing. I can't wait to watch it again. It's technically in the trilogy. I forget what it's like one of those theme trilogies, and I forget what it's called.
I am not sure. I hadn't really heard of it until you mentioned it.
It's like something that John Carpenter named him, but it's The Thing, In the Mouth of Madness, and Prince of Darkness. It's like, I don't know if it's called like the Darkness trilogy or something like that. Wow. But I haven't seen Prince of Darkness, just The Thing in this. But man, this is like the first thing since The Thing that I've watched that where I'm like, yeah, John Carpenter's got the juice. He knows what he's doing. Because I think The Thing is like a practically perfect movie, and I kind of feel the same way about this. It's got such a great atmosphere. Sam Neill is like incredible in this. This might be my favorite Sam Neill performance, which is saying something. I love him in like everything. He's great in Until the End of the World and in Jurassic Park. I'm a huge Sam Neill fan, and I love what it does. It captures the vibe of Lovecraft in a way that I'm not sure most like direct adaptations of his work could, while also doing something really neat with the plot and the way that they have essentially their Lovecraft standing character be like the central focal point that Sam Neill's character is interacting with. Like, so like the guy who writes essentially H.P. Lovecraft is essentially like in the story.
Yeah.
And he's writing his own stuff and it's coming to life, and that's super cool. I love what it's doing. It looks amazing. It's got some really memorable imagery, some really fun effects. Just like, it doesn't go as crazy as The Thing, obviously. It never really has
few things do.
I was about to say it has the need to go as crazy as The Thing, but they do still have like some really fun like Carpenter effects, lots of like head spinning, and in this there's like armies of crazy Lovecraftian creatures.
There you go, man.
It's so much fun. There's one point where like the screen rips open and it turns into like pages of a book, and there's just so much
awesome.
Cool stuff in this. Really strong imagery, great direction, great performances, and honestly, I really liked the story. I think they did a really smart job of doing kind of a very meta look at Lovecraft's work, and really a meta look at like kind of horror and monster stuff in like film.
Interesting.
Which, yeah, it's very cool.
I did some fact checking while you were talking, and it's called the Apocalypse Trilogy.
The Apocalypse Trilogy. I knew it had a name. Yeah, the Apocalypse Trilogy. I guess the apocalypse happens in all of them because that's 2 for 2. I don't know what happens in Army of Darkness.
Well, I mean, unconfirmed that the apocalypse happens in The Thing. You can kind of assume, but
it'll happen. Like, it will get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I gave it a 5 out of 5. I put in my review the biggest downgrade from this versus like if they did kind of a more direct thing is all of the naming sucks. Like, outside of In the Mouth of Madness and like the actual book names, because that's the name of the book in the movie.
Yeah.
But like the author, instead of being like H.P. Lovecraft, is like Sutter Kane. And like,
that's not a horrible name.
I forget what the town is called. It's like Hobbs End. And I'm like, this stuff is kind of lame.
Could be cooler.
Like, dude, you're telling me like Hobbs End horror is cooler than Arkham horror?
Right.
I don't know. What do I know?
I don't know. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I gave it a 5 out of 5. I really loved what it was doing.
Very nice. On the 18th, or like late on the 17th, I watched Return of the Fly, which came out in 1959. It's the sequel to the classic The Fly, which came out just 1 year earlier. So a lot of people have kind of criticized Return of the Fly for being like one of the first examples of like a rushed horror sequel.
A cash grab sequel.
Yeah, it very much is. It's kind of a retread of the first one in a lot of ways, but also it's like a way different thing, like altogether. It has a very different feel to it. Instead of being about like a marriage relationship, it's about like these 3 scientist colleagues, and like one of them backstabs them and like tries to sell the transporter thing to like the black market. It's very strange. But like on this one, the Fly goes on like a full-on rampage at the end, and like it's just killing a bunch of people. I'm like, this is kind of awesome, actually.
What about his giant mask?
Yeah, dude. One of the reviews on here said the success of the first movie must have gone straight to his head because it's enormous in this one. But dude,
if that is like his body there, then that's huge.
Yeah, no, it's like very bulbous, and like it's actually kind of funny to look at. But like one of the things that was so cool about the first Fly is how like good all of the effects look, and I would argue that they look just as good here, just not nearly as realistic, probably.
Yeah.
You still get like some fun like body horror stuff, which is basically the bread and butter of the Fly movies.
Yeah.
But you get like, again, the little fly with the human face, which is still so disturbing. I don't like those things.
Cronenberg's Fly.
Right.
Has my heart.
You have like a little guinea pig with like little human hands. You have like the guy with like giant guinea pig paws. It looks so scary. I don't know how they got it to look so scary. I was like, ugh. But yeah, I think it's off-putting in like the best way. I love the black and white cinemascope. I honestly think that this one wouldn't look as good in color as the first one, because the first one's very like theatrical, and like that's part of the appeal of it. You get to see like all of these bright colors.
It's almost very classic Hollywood look from what I've seen.
And this one's only a year later, and it's leaning like full B movie, and I think it works a lot better in black and white, honestly. But yeah, I thought it was a fun time. Like, the plot is a bit nonsensical, but I was kind of loving every scene. So I would happily watch it again, and I think that's high praise. But I gave Return of the Fly a 4 out of 5. Probably a little generous, but I had such a good time with it. I'm so excited for Curse of the Fly, which reportedly is the worst of the trilogy, because it has like the least amount of actual fly stuff in it. But I'm still excited. But yeah, after that we went and watched...
What did you give it?
I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
On the 18th, go ahead.
Oh yeah, we went out to the theater, actually.
Yeah,
and we watched The Shining.
Yeah, we had mentioned it, I think, the last couple episodes, since it's been going on for like the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But a theater near us every Wednesday doing a old horror movie. Coincidentally, they're all King adaptations, which is kind of funny. But this was the third one. This was the one we were most excited for. It was The Shining.
Yeah.
And it was very, very cool to see in theaters.
I mean, this is now my proclaimed like favorite horror movie at the very least, if not favorite movie ever. And seeing it in a theater, it was even like scarier. It was even more engrossing. Like, obviously, there's a lot of benefits to watching something on a bigger screen versus how I watched it the first time at home. You know, as good as it was at home.
Yeah. No, I mean, this was my third time watching the film, and like all three times it's kind of hit very differently. And this time it was just like, it's so captivating and so much like, I don't know, the best way I could describe it is like very similar to watching like the 2013 Evil Dead, which is very funny.
Such a funny comparison. They're way different.
Way different. But let me explain that. Hold your horses. Because that's like a super oppressive film. And I think on the first and even on the second time I watched The Shining, I didn't feel just how like kind of overwhelmingly oppressive the film is.
It's suffocating, dude.
And this time in the theater, like when it ended, when we hit the credits, I literally like untensed and like sighed. I was like,
yeah.
I was like, man, it's over. And like, really, like, I was happy. Like, it's such a great film. I think that's a real testament of like what the film is doing, that it has that feel to it. And seeing it in theaters is just, it increases that so much.
Yeah, I mean, people have written literal books about how like amazing this movie is.
Yeah, it's The Shining.
It's The Shining.
But no, seeing it, like, it looks amazing up on the big screen. The cinematography obviously is incredible in this. Oh my
goodness, the blocking, the lighting, the production design, literally like everything. The camera movement.
Yeah, I mentioned it when we talked about Dr. Sleep, how like kind of sad it is to see the Overlook Hotel not really shot in the same way as this, because like in this you know the Overlook Hotel, you don't see the whole layout because it doesn't actually exist, but like, you know, like, I don't know, when I watch this movie I feel like I know where everything is in the hotel, right? You have such a good sense of like location and feel.
Yeah, no, like everything about the movie is so well defined, and like it just has such a clear like vision behind it, and it's so well conceived just as a horror film that I can't help but like just love every scene. Like literally just any given scene from The Shining, I'm like, wow, that's a great scene.
Yeah,
dude, it's just the best.
Yeah, the performances of course are incredible. And Jack Nicholson is like crazy in this, as everyone knows. Shelley Duvall is giving such a memorable performance. Oh my goodness,
dude. Yeah, she's great
so
here.
Good. Even the kid who plays Danny, what's that kid's name?
His name's Danny.
His name's Danny Lloyd. That's funny. Danny is giving a good performance here. Like, it's just all good. I can't name like a single bad thing about The Shining.
Right.
It's bizarre, it's captivating, it's terrifying, it's suffocating, and it's really, really fun.
What always trips me up is I haven't found like a horror movie. I struggle finding horror movies that genuinely like kind of make my skin crawl, and this is one of them, which I just never expect, because it's really not like that violent by today's standards, but it's very off-putting in all the right ways, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
And I really admire it for that.
I was about to say one of the big things, and I specifically noted it this watch, is kind of the potency of the lack of violence in The Shining.
Yeah.
And like how little Jack Torrance like actually does. Like
he just kind of yells at people.
Yeah, he mostly just like yells and like verbally abuses people.
Exactly.
Which is really, really compelling for how his character plays out.
It feels like he's ripping them to pieces.
I was about to say that kind of the real sense of Jack, because if he just became like this murder machine, just chopping left and right, I don't think he would be nearly as memorable or powerful as a character. Yeah. But because he is like just this overwhelmingly kind of realistic feeling portrayal of what can happen with somebody, like, you know, somebody can genuinely be that like verbally abusive to somebody very easily. It's not even that crazy of a realm of thing. It makes him such a more threatening force.
Exactly. It grounds the whole story really well emotionally, and just, I don't know, it's so good. It's like the perfect movie.
Yeah, and I think it works really well too with the ending for his character, which I wasn't fully into before, but like I think this time around that really stood out to me.
I love it so much. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I gave it a 5 out of 5.
I gave it a 5 out of 5, yeah.
Then on the 19th, we headed back out to theaters again the very next day.
In IMAX
for
this time.
the premiere, IMAX premiere, like widespread premiere anyway.
not the like worldwide premiere or something.
Like your local theater premiere of Killers of the Flower Moon.
There's a lot of lead up.
That was a lot of lead up. But
new
Scorsese, 2023 Scorsese. The man's like 87 years old, but we're still getting some of the best movies ever.
My goodness, dude. I hope that I could make a movie even half as good as this at like in my 80s or something.
Your rating still depresses me so much, but yeah, dude, Killers of the Flower Moon. I don't want to spoil anything about it. I'm trying to think of the best way to tactfully talk about it, because obviously it's
very new.
It's history though, like, so I can't like spoil maybe the Osage people were killed off.
Wow, who would have thought it?
Maybe they stole their land. But like a lot of the finer details and everything, but this is incredible. I cannot believe that we got this and Oppenheimer in the same year. Can you believe that 2 like 3-hour massive historical fiction pieces?
They're not historical fiction.
Or not historical. Just historical.
Yeah, just historical movies.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Historical dramas.
You mentioned historical fiction earlier and threw me off.
Yeah.
But just massive like chunks of history, and done in completely different and both equally effective ways, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The more I've sat with Killers of the Flower Moon, the more I've like really, really admired what it's doing. It's easily, out of all of the films, like, and I've seen all of Scorsese's narrative features. I did a whole ranking of them earlier. Out of all of his films, and almost all of them are touching on like bad men doing bad things.
Yeah, pretty much.
For some societal reason going into that. And that's kind of his thing that he touches on. Out of all of his films that he's done, and he's done some ones about pretty rough people, this one feels just the most absolutely sinister and disgusting.
It's a very gross movie.
It's grimy.
Yeah.
DiCaprio, you want to like, he just is like almost like repulsive in this movie, given really his character.
Yeah.
And like De Niro is like disgustingly charming in his role, and like it's crazy stuff. I really love what they do with this. Lily Gladstone is giving just one of the most incredible performances I've seen.
I think she's like, I mean, this isn't like a hot take or anything, but she was my emotional like grounding performance through the whole movie.
I think she's honestly the standout performance. We've seen stuff like similar to this before from De Niro and DiCaprio, and they're really good in this, obviously, but like Lily Gladstone is like stealing the picture here.
Yeah. I wish she was in it more. Ugh.
Yeah, I wish she was in it a tad bit more.
Yeah.
But just in general, like, she does so much, because like, again, one of the things is like, this is again told from a very true story, and Molly was just a very like a very quiet person.
Yeah.
We do not have much account of what she actually thought or what she actually said, because she just didn't say much.
Yeah.
So to take that level of a character and not like add in a bunch of dialogue and a bunch of things, and to portray her in such a interesting, powerful, sympathetic, really like just gripping way with so little dialogue is incredible.
Yeah. I don't know. I wasn't as on board as a lot of people were for a lot of De Niro's stuff in this. Like the two, like you said, the two like main bad people of the movie. I just wasn't as invested in a lot of the stuff that they were doing for a lot of it.
I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to give it another rewatch because like I really admire the way it tackles its history and like the way it goes about framing its story, and I love the performances. I think it's a masterfully made movie. I love the score, the editing, the composition, the rhythm of it. It's a spectacular feat of filmmaking.
Yeah. Dude, the music in this is incredible.
Yeah, the way they score it's crazy because it's very reminiscent of something like like Scorsese's other, as I would describe them, like montage films, where there's like constantly just like a beat going in the background of some kind.
But it's very interesting too this time around because it's such a different musical like landscape than you'd expect for this. Like again, like the moment like the oil comes up in the one scene with the Osage people like dancing around in it, they play like electric guitar.
I was about to say the guitars, dude. They keep coming back.
There's such interesting use of rock music in this, and actually one of my friends who's like a musician himself did a really interesting like review talking about kind of the way it even uses musical history to kind of punctuate its point.
Yeah, no, I mentioned in my review that I think it's a technical masterpiece, and it's really like personal, and it goes about telling its story in a really thoughtful way, and I really respect it, but I just wasn't like fully invested in a lot of the like actual crime stuff. I love like
get off the stage.
I love like the central like romantic relationship. Like that was the most captivating part of it for me.
That's the main part of the movie.
I know, which is why I generally like the movie. I think it's really great. But I just wasn't 100% there for the whole time. I also needed to take a nap before.
Yeah, that's I think what really did you in. This is a long
so long.
It's a genuinely long film.
Yeah, so we were in the last like maybe 40 minutes, and I was like, oh gosh, I want it to be done.
I was glued
which is
to
a really
the screen.
Terrible thing to say about this movie, because like I said, it's really well paced, and like
I was about to say similarly to The Irishman, which is also freaking long. I just like, even though you feel it's like, you can't make a movie this long and not feel its length.
Yeah.
Any long movie that gets over like 3 hours, you're going to feel the fact that more than 3 hours is going by.
Well, and again, that's not always.
I was about to say, but that's not always inherently a bad thing.
Yeah.
And like,
and I think
similarly to The Irishman, I was just never like, yeah, it's long, but I never once wanted it to be over.
Yeah.
I was like rolling with it. I was ready to be in it for like 3 more hours.
I honestly wish it was like 2 hours longer.
I was about to say, yeah, I put it in my review. I thought this was very funny. I was like, my biggest complaint might actually be that it's not long enough.
Yeah.
Which is very funny because it's 3.5 hours.
Well, there's a lot of like small spiritual themes that it touches on and doesn't really get to fully flesh out.
There's a lot of the stuff. One of the big things, and I understand why it is the way it is, especially given the framing device given at the end of the movie. But I wish the Osage people were focused on a little more. Not even just like, oh, I can't believe they didn't focus on the Osage. Just like, because I find it personally interesting and would love to see more of their culture portrayed. And I love the spirituality stuff that they get into with them.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah, like just, it's great.
I was about to say,
I would just love to see more.
There's a moment with Lily Gladstone's character that literally I like gasped, I think, when it happened. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's incredible stuff. This is one of the best movies that's been made in a while.
It's one of the best of the year, man.
One of the best of the year. And what did you give it, Robbie?
I gave it a 4 out of 5. The same as Return of the Fly. Silly, in a very silly fashion.
I gave it a 5 out of 5.
It would, I don't know. I couldn't in good conscience give it a perfect score with how disengaged I was for maybe like 20 minutes of it. which is a real shame. I wanna love it like that much more. So I'm gonna give it another try.
Tisk. Then what did we watch, Ravi?
Then we turned on a short film called Once Upon a Studio.
Yes.
It's a new Disney Plus thing. I think it's gonna premiere with Wish in theaters when that comes out.
Probably question.
Yeah, I think so. But we watched it on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I was curious. I'd actually the reason I wanted to check it out is I had seen Shafrillis's video on it, and he was talking about it pretty positively, which I was not expecting.
Very positively,
given what it looks like, and I was like, oh, I got to check that out then. And yeah, it was really fun. It's sweet. You can tell it is, just like he said, there's not much to it, but you can tell, like Shafrillis mentioned in his video, that it's just made out of a place of, actual love for the characters, and not, here are 40,000 brands we own and that you should buy.
It feels a lot more loving than, they added up all the analytics and here are their most popular characters,
it's still Disney and they're still here are all of the characters we made.
Yeah.
So it still kind of feels like that, but there's some genuine love here. I love the blending of animations, that they pulled a lot of old animation and did some unique 2D stuff for it.
Yeah.
And kept those 2D styles. Because again, you take something like Wreck-It Ralph, it would be so easy for them, in Ralph Breaks the Internet, to do weird, ugly 3D models of everything.
Yeah.
But they kept the old animation, and it's really charming. And I think what really makes it work and makes it feel a little bit better than you'd think it would be is just the amount of obscure characters that appear in this, that you really have to a
lot of deep cuts.
Yeah, you really have a bunch of stuff from
as deep as a Disney movie.
I was about to say a bunch of stuff from some pretty hated Disney movies, Treasure Planet and The Black Cauldron, and even just some lesser thought about Disney movies, stuff that's not held up in the pantheon of Disney movies. There are 5 Meet the Robinsons characters.
That is still so weird.
Which that is not usually uttered in the same breath as Moana or something. So it was cool. It was fun. There's not much to it.
I literally just left a one word review that said nifty.
Yeah, I think that's an appropriate review.
It's not amazing or anything, but I think it's cool for nifty. What it is. Yeah, it's nifty.
It's neat. Then what did you watch, Remy?
Then I turned on my second Tobe Hooper movie.
Toby.
Yeah, old Texas Chainsaw Man.
Texas.
He made another movie about rednecks. And it's called Eaten Alive. And it has a animatronic crocodile in it.
Always
which
cool.
Is the coolest thing you can put in the movie. Just about.
If it's about rednecks and it doesn't have an animatronic crocodile, what are you doing?
That really is the coolest thing here. I don't know. I'm so torn on this one because on one hand, I really admire what it's attempting to do. It's very surreal and stagey almost. This is shot entirely on 2 sound stages by the look of it. And it's bathed in these crazy colors, and all of the performances are very just kind of manic and strange, and nothing really makes sense. It kind of feels like a weird dream you had. But it just doesn't come together for me. All the characters are just way too annoying for me to be on board. Yeah, just even well, the thing is you get all of these visitors to this hotel in Louisiana. And the guy who owns it keeps killing them, or I think he accidentally kills the first person or something, and then it keeps escalating from there. People keep getting fed to the giant animatronic crocodile in various ways, and it's kind of cool, but all of the people are just so annoying to watch. There's screaming kids and everyone's just yelling all the time. They're either yelling or whispering, and I'm this is killing me. It's a deeply unpleasant movie, and not in the way that I would praise something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre for his film that he made right before this.
Yeah. Which you could claim it's very similar in its dialogue, but there's so much less dialogue.
Yeah, that's the thing. This one's nonstop dialogue almost, which is crazy. Why would you make a movie like this, a weird Louisiana slasher? there's like monologues and like constant arguing and bickering and everyone, I don't know. And whenever there's not talking, they have this country radio that's just playing the whole time at any given volume. I don't know. I found it to be an unpleasant experience. And even though I thought the lighting was cool, I thought the fog machines were awesome. I love giant crocodile animatronics. That was like the coolest thing ever. It just was not for me on a wider scale.
Yeah.
But yeah, setting, staging, awesome. Everything else, not so much. I gave it a 2 out of 5. Eaten Alive. Strange film. I don't think I actually said the name of the movie at the beginning.
No, you did.
Okay, it's called Eaten Alive.
Then we also went on to Disney Plus and we watched, this very rarely happens actually, we went on to Mickey and Friends Trick or Treats, which is another one. They did like this weird stop motion, and I think it's done by one of the studios that worked on Robot Chicken, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's Stupid Buddy Studios.
Yeah, which is very funny, but they did one for Christmas last year.
Yeah.
That is like a claymation, Robot Chicken style.
I was about to say they're not strictly claymation, but they are stop motion.
Yeah, I was about to say not like claymation, but that Robot Chicken style stop motion. They did one for Christmas.
Yeah, Mickey Saves Christmas.
Now they did one for Halloween.
Yeah.
And you know what? I was not a huge fan of the Christmas one, but this one was pretty fun. It's pretty comparable to like an episode of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
This is like the greatest episode of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse of all time, if that's the comparison,
Yeah, like it's really fun. It's got some very spooky things. It's very clearly for like little kids, and it pulls that off well.
Yeah, I thought the songs were fun. I think it looks really good. Like the designs of everything, the way it's lit and shot is really cool. I love the 2D ghosts and everything. Like it's a really good looking thing for what it is, and it sounds pretty good too.
Yeah, if I saw this when I was a kid, I would absolutely adore it, and I think it's really cute and sweet now. Yeah. I think it's a lot better executed than the Christmas one, but I think that's just because they gave this this is like a TV show episode time.
It has like
the other
one,
the other one was like
minutes.
I forget how long the other one was, but it was pretty short.
The other one's 23.
The other one's what?
Just not much happens.
What happens in that? I do not remember.
They're
anything.
Like hanging out, and then Santa crashes. They go back to the workshop antics as they try and make the presents, because like all the presents fall in the ice or whatever.
I do not remember this. Literally well, at any rate,
it's not as memorable.
At any rate, the Halloween one is far more memorable.
It's much better, yeah.
And yeah, I think it's fun.
It's spooky.
The songs are good.
The mood is good, and it's fun. I liked it a lot.
Oh yeah. I'll give a quick shout out to this. Not go into this. We also watched while we were on there, we saw Pluto Jr.
Pluto Jr.
And that poster was pretty epic.
He's so cute.
So we watched Pluto Jr. And where did he go? What happened to Pluto Jr.? Did he die? What happened to Pluto Jr.?
Dude.
And has he appeared in anything else?
I love that Pluto Jr. is literally the whole appeal for me, was just Pluto Jr. is like the cutest dog of all time.
Right. Pluto Jr. is a solid win. Not too much. Like, it's a fine short. It's a pretty funny
short, yeah.
It's basic, honestly, like Looney Tunes style stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty boilerplate as far as like physical comedy.
I was about to say,
it
reminds me a lot of Tweety Bird.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
That kind of dynamic. It's pretty much just reskinned Tweety Bird.
But it's fun.
But yeah, it's fun.
Go watch Pluto Jr. if you want to see a cute little dog.
Get some Pluto Jr. rep. Then, on the 20th, we watched The Monster Squad.
The Monster Squad.
A classic, maybe.
Cult classic. At the very least.
80s Halloween tween movie.
Yeah, directed by Fred Dekker and written by Fred Dekker and Shane Black.
Yeah, Shane Black on the screenplay, which is unfortunate, though.
The Letterboxd people love Shane Black.
Well, I like Shane Black, but this is not the move.
No.
Especially on a writing standpoint. Oof. I was not a big Monster Squad fan, and it's not even, like, the plot isn't bad. The atmosphere's pretty good. It's got that fun, like, 80s teen movie vibe, you know?
Yeah.
It's got something going for it.
It's got a charm going.
Dracula's fun.
I love all the monster stuff. Literally like, any monster scene, I'm like, heck yeah.
Every other character in the movie besides the monsters actively suck in some way or another. They're all unlikable.
Yeah, it's really interesting because Shane Black loves to play around with like tropes and like, you know, archetypes in his movies.
Yeah.
And it just manifests in a really ugly way in this one, you know?
I was about to say, this has got like all of the worst like tween movie tropes out there from the 80s. And like, these kids suck. I want to I want to punch these kids.
I really do kind of hate the group of kids that it centers around.
They're terrible. They're terrible people. Why would I root for them? Everything they do is gross.
Right? Yeah, dude. Really, that is my biggest critique of it, because I think like from a production standpoint, it's really impressive, and like the costuming looks really good. The effects are really cool. The sets are generally awesome. Like, there's some cool set pieces and everything. Yeah. But, like, it just really grates on my nerves in, like, any scene where it's just, like, the kids hanging out doing stuff. I'm like, this, ugh.
Which I think makes the movie, to me, kind of obsolete, because I think so many other movies are doing this exact same plot. Like, not exactly the same, but, like, I put in my review, it's almost, like, it just feels so comparable in plot, so overdone, so comparable to something like Paranorman, or most, like, Disney Channel Halloween. I mean,
this was the late 80s. Dude, we're not getting that far into like meta like genre dissection.
Beyond that, it's just like, I'm just saying, like, this just basic plot premise and the way it plays out feels so overdone.
Yeah,
like not I don't want it to be like some meta thing, but just like the concept and the way the conflict plays out is so overdone.
That's fair, yeah.
I gave it a 2.5 out of 5.
I gave it a 2 out of 5. I was not into it. I wouldn't watch it again. I would watch like compilation of all like Dracula scenes or all the creature from the Black Lagoon scenes. I loved him in this.
Right, he was very fun. Then I think it was later that day. Was it? Yeah, it was later that day on the 20th.
Dude, we watched so much stuff on the 20th.
Scooby-Doo Spooky Scarecrow.
Spooky Scarecrow.
Which was one of the films I had not seen from Scooby-Doo, because I did not, in my watch through of all of the Scooby-Doo movies, watch all of kind of the short film episode length ones. Like, they're not attached to any TV show, but they're essentially just an episode of a Scooby-Doo TV show.
Yeah.
And this was one of them that I hadn't seen before.
I like the Scarecrow design.
Yeah, it's good. It's pretty fun. It's like, I would say this is like just Scooby-Doo. Like, this is like base level Scooby-Doo.
This is like the most basic version of Scooby-Doo you could get.
It's not doing anything wrong, and it's not doing anything amazing.
Exceptional, yeah.
It is a episode of Scooby-Doo that did happen. It wouldn't be one that I would ever be like, oh, you've got to watch Spooky Scarecrow.
No.
But there's nothing wrong with Spooky Scarecrow.
It's so predictable, dude. It like, that's not usually a criticism I would throw at Scooby-Doo.
How much of the TV show have you watched, Robbie?
That's
the TV shows are like this. Yeah. They don't have time to
set up these webs of deception.
That's one thing that's really different between the movies and the show, is like,
they introduce like 5 characters that it could be.
I was about to say, most of the shows are just like, you just know who it is. Yeah. That's not really, but like the movies have time to introduce a lot more. I think really the only thing of note that I'll shout this out for is that Wendy Malick is in it. And I really like Wendy Malick. She's cool.
Yeah, good time. Generally, the vibes are at least nice.
Yeah. I didn't rate it because it's a short film, but I gave it a like.
So yeah, it was pretty fun.
Then what did we watch on the 20th still?
We watched a little film called Silver Bullet.
Whoa. I'm sure the Silver Bullet won't be a electric motor or like motorized motorcycle wheelchair.
Yeah, this is from director Daniel Attias. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. I'm so sorry.
It's Attias.
But the reason I found out about this is he directed a few episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, my favorite TV show.
That's very funny.
And I wanted to see what his movie was like, because this is the only like feature film he didn't like just do additional directing for. He's like a second unit director for stuff like E.T. and One from the Heart. Pretty big movies. But this is one of his like actual like the director credits.
Oh wow, it's a Dino De Laurentiis produced film. I didn't know that.
But yeah, it's called Silver Bullet. It's adapted from a Stephen King novella by a different name. I don't remember the name of the. It's a werewolf thing.
And not only that, but Stephen King on the screenplay.
Yeah,
which is not a good sign typically.
Yeah, a lot of the movies that like he wrote himself do not have the greatest reputation, but this is like one of the higher rated ones that he actually wrote.
Yeah, and it was fine. It was fun. It was fine.
The werewolf stuff, very cool. I loved how like gruesome all of the werewolf attacks are.
The Gary Busey stuff. Ooh, weird.
It's weird. Yeah. So much of the movie is just like strange. It's not really like boring per se, but like it's just odd.
Yeah, like Gary Busey will come in and he'll be like, "Well, son, you gotta something misogynistic, something weird, something I don't even know. Mechanics, werewolves are not real." And then he makes him a super dangerous wheelchair,
dude.
And that's like half the movie.
It's so funny. He literally he makes him a motorized wheelchair, but it literally is like a motorcycle.
Okay, well the first one he makes, I was like, oh, that's pretty neat. That's fun. He uses like a lawnmower engine and has a little joystick like we have as a lot of our motorized wheelchairs now.
Yeah.
And he can just kind of putt around. It's loud, but it's like
functional.
It's functional.
Yeah.
And then he makes the Silver Bullet, and it is a full-on motorcycle.
Well, see, Micah, the first one's called the Silver Bullet. This is Silver Bullet 2.0.
Silver Bullet 2.0 is a
like
full-on motorcycle. This thing is going like 50 down the highway.
It's so funny. But yeah, I don't know. I thought it was funny. I said this is like from the when you ask your mom, can we have that? And they're like, we have that at home. This is that version of Midnight Mass, basically.
Yeah, which if you've seen the movie, it makes a bit more sense. But also it has Everett McGill, I think. Yeah, McGill, which is a Twin Peaks alumni.
Cool.
So that's fun. I saw him and I was like, hey, it's like Twin Peaks.
Yeah, I think it's like worth a visit just for it, like if you are into like cool werewolf stuff. Like I think its werewolf stuff is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But like the pacing is really shoddy, and like the characterization of all the, different characters in the movie is really weird and weak.
No, yeah.
And like flimsy. It's a weird movie.
It's Stephen King's script, and it's one of the more likable Stephen King scripts. Yeah. And again, the werewolf stuff is fun, but outside of that, which there's just not much plot outside of that. So it's fine. It's pretty good. I gave it a 3 out of 5.
I also gave it a 3 out of 5. A pleasant experience, but not a great one.
Not one I would return to.
Yeah. After that, I watched a film called The Ghost of Sierra de Cobre, which is directed by Joseph Stefano, actually written, directed, and produced by Joseph Stefano.
Stefano was busy.
Yeah, he's the writer of Psycho. That's what most people would probably know him for. He was like the sole screenwriter for that. And this very much feels like I can see where, like, I can see the connecting tissue between the two movies. It's a lot more like, obviously it's a ghost story. It feels very reminiscent of a lot of the Italian like ghost movies I've watched, in the fact that it's like very flashy and like a lot of the images are very striking. It's visually a very cool movie, and there's a lot of really awesome like ghost effects in it, actually, especially considering it's the mid-60s.
Yeah.
But it's just really boring. Like it's like the most boring
fatal flaw.
Yeah, it's like the most boring version of this movie, which is like a real shame, because it like the mood and atmosphere and like general premise is really cool. It's like this mother who's scared of being like buried alive. She installs like this phone in her crypt, like the family crypt, and like she dies, and the son is starting to get calls from the ghost phone, so he calls in like this paranormal investigator to come find out if he's actually being haunted. And it's so cool. Like they do a lot of, like I said, like really fun, like neat stuff visually. But like the actual plot of it is just so boring. Like not much actually happens in the movie. And like even the like climactic scenes where like people are dying and like driving off cliffs and stuff, I'm like, this, it's just so it's so I don't care. Yeah, I don't care about any of these people. I care so much about the setting, but like I don't care about anything that actually happens in the movie.
Yeah, I get that.
Which is a real shame. I wanted to love it so much more. And I know it has like actually on here it has like a 3.3 average on Letterboxd, but there's a lot of like really dedicated people who seem to really like it on here. So
yeah.
Hopefully it has an audience beyond me, but I was not too fond of it. I think I want to give it another shot sometime just to see if I like vibe with it a little more. But yeah, The Ghost of Sierra de Cobre, I gave a 3 out of 5.
Which I'll shout out, like during that time, I made actually a film experiment thing that I was working on.
Yeah.
That I had the idea for a while. Like while they watched this, I had kind of finished it up. I had been working on it for most of the day. And it's called Vampire. It's on my YouTube channel, M. Greyway Films. It's like 26 minutes, and it's I don't know. I think it's kind of neat. What do I know? The goal was I was going to use all stock and like old footage that was public domain off of the Internet Archive, as well as songs and stuff that's public domain off the Internet Archive, and like try and craft a narrative film out of a kind of, it's an abstract narrative film, obviously, but try and create some kind of an emotional narrative with silent film tactics over like using just found footage, and not like found footage, but like footage I found. Archive footage.
Yeah.
Which was really fun. And it was really like, I don't know, it was engaging to do. I think it's a cool film experiment. I had actually heard of something similar to this from like...
Yeah, there's been quite a few.
I was about to say that there's a pretty common thing to do in like film schools and stuff, kind of as an editing experiment, really, to get you used to trying to craft narrative with editing. So yeah, it was kind of like a little personal film school project, essentially. But yeah, check it out. It seems to be getting a lot of love on my YouTube channel, which is funny. I wasn't expecting that. Most of my short films on YouTube get like a couple views, and I'm fine with that, because usually I'm making them like for myself because I want to experiment with something. Yeah. And this one's like really performing well so far. So go watch that if you want.
I'm a bad co-host and brother because I have not watched it yet, but
Fair enough,
go check it out.
Then on the 20th, though, later that same night, we're still on the 20th, we decided to watch Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
Last episode of the show, we talked about the fact that we had watched Evil Dead for the first time. Mm-hmm. The Evil Dead, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
So the original Evil Dead, if you will. And we were really excited specifically to get to Evil Dead 2. That was kind of obviously, I think, our most anticipated of the series.
Yeah.
And Evil Dead 2, it rocks. It's so much fun.
This is such like a stereotypical like Letterboxd film bro take, but like Evil Dead 2 is awesome.
It's just I do have like some complaints in how like it is not nearly as kind of scary or visceral or even abstract as the first Evil Dead.
Well, the first one it's very unique in the tone it takes on. And this one like completely drops that for something much lighter, but not necessarily less entertaining.
I was about to say even like the NC-17 nature of the original Evil Dead really allows it to kind of feel very like, even its violence, because that's technically what it's NC-17 for. Is its violence. And that NC-17 violence, I don't know, this is gonna sound weird, like really gives it like this kind of grunge, this punch to what it's doing that this does not have. But that's not a big thing. It's just slightly disappointing to go directly from one to the next. This is just offering something completely different.
I was about to say there's a completely different draw when it comes to Evil Dead 2, because like Evil Dead has like a very admirable like grasp on its atmosphere and everything, and it like that's like one of the best things about it. And this one,
this is Looney Tunes, the horror movie.
Yeah, it's a lot sillier, and I think it succeeds for like its performances and its like just insane direction and writing, and it's amazing. It's awesome.
It gets the Ash that I really wanted, because Ash in the first movie, I had only seen him in Ash versus Evil Dead, and like seeing him in the first one, he's such a different character, because he changes so much throughout all of the films, and like seeing him here kind of start to become that kind of goofball action hero Ash was really, really fun. And this is just such a creative and fun movie. It's doing so many unique things. Like that. So much of and a lot of its comedy honestly just boils down to really fantastic physical comedy.
Right?
Like Bruce Campbell is hilarious in this.
Literally, I think the first half hour or so of Evil Dead 2 is just like him doing like silent comedy bits.
Literally, he's just like struggling before the plot even arrives, as it's trying to like loosely connect itself to the first film. It is just Bruce Campbell by himself, essentially, just really
around.
Really trying his best.
It's so funny, dude.
There's some cool stuff, like the stop motion in this film yet again is really incredible.
There's more stop motion, there's more puppets, there's more prosthetics, there's more blood. It's awesome, dude.
No, I don't think there's more.
Well,
blood.
Maybe not more blood, but like there's a lot of blood.
Yeah, and like I was specifically going to mention though, like the headless girlfriend sequence is hilarious, it's so cool. Oh my goodness. It looks so cool. It's like sufficiently creepy and really funny.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not as off-putting as the first movie is, but like it's still unsettling and like macabre enough that I'm really into like how awesome everything looks.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call this as much of a horror movie, but it is definitely like a spooky movie. It is a horror comedy at its core, but it is like, this is way more of like what I would call a spooky movie that I would watch around Halloween than the first Evil Dead is.
Yeah. No, the first one is very much a full-on horror film.
Yeah.
Through and through.
But yeah, I'd like, dude, what else to say about this? Like,
it's crazy that it ends the way it does.
I love that it ends the way it does. I did not know it would end that way, but the fact that it leads like straight into Army of Darkness, like the moment they set up the portal, I was like, wait a minute, I know how this goes, because having seen Ash vs. Evil Dead, they play a lot from Army of Darkness and Evil Dead 2, since those are like the two canon movies to Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute, I know what's happening here. They're going to take him. And it leads directly into like Army of Darkness.
Yeah. Which, I don't know. I think it's crazy because this movie like has like not really a beginning and not really an ending.
Which I realize now, though, I misspoke like 5 times earlier, and everyone's mad at me probably. It's Prince of Darkness for the Carpenter film.
Did you say Army?
I kept saying Army of Darkness.
That's funny.
Yeah, Prince of Darkness.
I thought you said Prince for some reason.
I know I said Army at least once. Prince of Darkness is the Carpenter film.
Yes.
Army of Darkness is the Raimi film.
Yes. But we've rambled on about Evil Dead 2 long enough. But takeaway is good movie.
It rocks. It's so fun. It's just goofy, silly.
Yeah.
I will shout out one more thing. The kitchen scene when it's Ash fighting against his evil hand is like the funniest thing in the world.
Smashing plates.
I was about to say, he's just like smashing plates into himself and like throwing himself around. At one point he grabs himself with his hand and flips himself around. And I don't know if they did that fully in camera. Like I could see that you could, but it looks so much like the hand is flipping him that again, Bruce Campbell is insane in this movie.
Yeah.
I gave it a 5 out of 5.
Visually crazy. I also gave it a 5 out of 5. Very much my thing.
Then on the 21st, I watched all by myself.
Wow.
Not actually.
So
I watched it with my mom. Just separate from Robbie is what I meant. I watched The Descent, which is a 2005 horror film. It's pretty well known.
Yeah, I was excited to see it.
It's unfortunately by the same director who did the Hellboy remake, Neil Marshall.
Ooh.
And it's kind of going into a genre that I found extremely disappointing, that I feel like shouldn't be, which is like the spelunking horror movie. I've seen several of these at this point.
Spelunking horror.
And
such a funny corner of the horror scene.
I think I need to make one because I feel like every single one of them has disappointed me, and I think it's a really good idea for like a horror setting.
Yeah.
Even As Above, So Below, which is like I think the best one that I've seen of those, is still not like fully doing it for me. But the descent is like odd because it's like it's pretty good. It's fun.
Yeah,
it's exciting.
It has a pretty like dedicated fan base.
Yeah, it's got it's got a 3.6 average on Letterboxd.
That's good, yeah.
It's got pretty strong visuals. It's got a pretty great cast. It's got some fun horror sequences, but there's just a lot that kind of turns me off to this movie, mainly in the actual plotting. It doesn't fully like make much cohesive sense to watch, and like it's kind of, I don't know, a lot of the characters are really annoying, and then it takes this kind of unfortunate twist where, like, it's not a twist, but, like, the two most interesting characters are not the main characters, and the two main characters, I mean, technically, Juno is, like, one of the main characters, but, like, Beth and Sarah are, like, the closest, and Sarah is the main character, and, like, they kind of suck. Juno did not deserve all that happens in this film. And, like, I don't know, by the end, I understand that I think, like, what they're going for is that it's, like, Sarah's descent into madness.
Whoa.
But, like, at the same time, it is not pleasant to watch, not even, like, a fun unpleasantness to watch.
Yeah.
Or even, like, a striking unpleasantness to watch. The little monster designs are also weird. Like, it's weird that the monsters are in here. I like that there are monsters in here, but they use them to really weird effect. It's just a weird toned movie, a weird paced movie. And, like, at the end of the film, I'm like, what was the point of this? Why did I watch this? Like, it's
only
not,
you can answer that.
It's not like there's nothing I really personally grabbed from the film.
That's a shame, because it does look visually really cool. That's
yeah,
the big
no,
reason
there's some great visual stuff in here, except for I should mention this. The editing is pretty bad.
Yeah, you mentioned Taken in your review.
Anytime it gets into like a horror or action scene, and except for like the one where she's like supposed to be super still, it looks like Taken, man. They're cutting every 0.5 seconds, probably less than that. There's a boom, 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 boom.
It's really hard to do that well.
I was about to say, and it doesn't work. It's not disorienting like I think is what they wanted to go for, but it doesn't. It just looks ugly. It really does. And then it's goofy on top of that. Like, you have this kind of horror themed movie, but the ending set piece is just an action set piece. Oh. It's not a scary set piece. It is literally an action set piece.
Just like, just running and gunning kind of thing.
Literally. And I was like, oh, that's like, okay.
That's a bit disappointing. Yeah.
So yeah, it's, again, I need to make one of these cave horror movies, because all of them have been like, oh, that's kind of cool, but then kind of disappoint me a lot. I gave it a 3 out of 5.
Fair enough. After that, I watched a film without you, Micah, called King Kong versus Godzilla. I'm watching through the Showa era of Godzilla movies, which include the first one, which is like a masterpiece. But I wanted to watch all of the rest of them just because I really like the like general production design and like the look of them and the feel of them, and like, I don't know, there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do in a Godzilla movie, which is probably why they're still being made today. But yeah, this is King Kong versus Godzilla. This is the third one, and it's pretty bad. But I watched the American like recutting of it. It like intercuts a lot of scenes of white guys sitting down and explaining exactly what's happening to you so you don't get too confused.
Those Americans.
Yeah. It's really off-putting and annoying, and like, I don't know, the way I summed it up in my review is whenever Godzilla's on screen, 10 of 10, great movie, life-changing, amazing, emotional, gripping, beautiful, etc. Whenever Godzilla is not on screen, I was like, ooh.
I walked out for like 5 seconds of the film, and I was like, this might be the most racist 5 seconds of a movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, very strange. The top review on the American like recut of the movie is they gave a 5-year-old in blackface a cigarette. And that is an actual thing that happens in the movie. And I think generally most Godzilla fans are like, yeah, the blackface in this one is not great. I feel like
hot take, yeah. Blackface bad ?
Yeah. So I imagine that's still in the Japanese cut, but I really do want to see like the original like 1962 version of this. That's like fully what they were trying to do, because like all of the actual kaiju stuff in this one rocks. Like, it's literally awesome. I was like cheering during the entire last half hour of it. It's so cool. But yeah, overall weak movie. I gave it a 2 out of 5. Still looking for a way to watch the Japanese one. I couldn't find it. Didn't you watch something later?
On the 21st,
Yeah.
I watched two other movies still. One of them was The Faculty, Robert Rodriguez. And I was really excited for this, mainly because like I didn't like I'm a pretty decent sized Robert Rodriguez fan.
You're a casual Robert Rodriguez
but
fan.
This is a Kevin Williamson screenplay,
Yay.
which we have talked about Kevin Williamson so freaking much on this podcast.
So many people, it's funny, there are so many people who just like extremely dislike Kevin Williamson's like writing style and everything.
I love Kevin
and we just endlessly sing praises of his screenplays.
I think Kevin Williamson's writing style is amazing. So I was super excited to get to this, especially with Robert Rodriguez as the director. Because again, he's a really interesting director.
He's a very passionate director, at the very least.
I haven't seen a lot of his more like adult work, which I'm curious to check out at some point. I've mostly seen his kids' movies, but watching The Faculty was very interesting. The cast is really great. Elijah Wood's the lead, which I was super, super happy about. I love Elijah Wood so much. And really all of the cast is great in this. Like Josh Hartnett and Clea Duvall is in this, and like just a lot of people, a lot of faces you would expect to see in a late 90s teen.
Yeah, it looks like a fun
movie.
like teen horror film.
And it just rocks. It's so goofy. I think it's really weird that it's like 0% Robert Rodriguez, maybe like 5% Robert Rodriguez, and like 95% Kevin Williamson.
Is he just indulging like all of his weird little tropes that he likes?
He really is.
That's
and
so funny,
like it's just like from a direction standpoint, it does not stand out as feeling Robert Rodriguez-y to me, but it's still really fun. I love what it's doing. It's simple. It's not like mind-blowing in any way. It's got its pacing issues. It's got its script issues. It's got some wonky CGI, which I guess is expected in a Robert Rodriguez film.
Yeah.
But it's just so much fun. I love the way Kevin Williamson writes dialogue and writes character dynamics.
Right. That's what always gets me through his films.
I was about to say, and that is just as strong in this as any Scream movie. So...
Yeah, that's the thing. An unregulated Kevin Williamson will write like the weirdest, longest third act of all time.
Right. Which, yeah. Yeah. But I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Very cool.
Then also on the 21st, I watched Insidious Chapter 2.
Whoa.
James Wan. I had already seen Insidious and Insidious 5. Which is funny.
We did an episode on Insidious.
I thought you were about to say we did an episode on Insidious 5. I was like, no, we didn't. But yeah, I finally watched Insidious Chapter 2. I was not a huge fan of it, but I wasn't a big fan of Insidious. I actually think Insidious Chapter 2 is honestly the much stronger movie out of the two. Which is so
funny.
It seems to have its head on its shoulders a bit more. It feels less overdone. It feels...
Insidious is a deeply silly movie.
I don't know. It just works a lot better for me personally.
Yeah.
Except for, unfortunately, it leans on some like pretty rough tropes when it comes to gender stuff in this film. It really sucks and really makes me kind of want to disengage with what the film is doing.
Yeah.
Because that's like, it doubles down on it and it's fully into that. And I'm like, oof. So
that's a shame.
The Insidious series continues to be one that is not my favorite. But honestly, this one's fun. It has more Tucker and Specs, and they're fun. So what can you do?
There you go.
I gave it a 3 out of 5.
Insidious Chapter 2, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
On the 22nd, I sat down and watched The Town That Dreaded Sundown, which is like a weird little like faux documentary made in 1976 about a series of murders in Texas, Arizona town, Texarkana.
Texarkana.
I think it like is like on the line between the two or something. I don't remember. It's very cool, I think. I'm not usually I'm a bit turned off by like movies that are based on true stories, especially horror films.
Yeah, we've talked about that in length before.
Yeah. They're just, I don't know, they always feel very, like they can so easily veer into being like exploitative of people's like very real trauma and like heartache and everything. And this one isn't immune to that criticism at all. But I do think it is a very cool artifact of its time at the very least. Like, it's a very well-researched and seemingly empathetic take on, like, a series of unidentified murders, about as sensitive as you can be.
Yeah.
It has some really good staging. A lot of the lighting is really nice. The atmosphere's pretty cool when it wants to be. Really, the biggest criticism I can throw at it is that it's like tonally just all over the place. It like kind of ping pongs around from being like really dark and intense, and like all of the killing scenes are just really amazing, which is like simultaneously a good thing for the movie's sake and a kind of a bad thing for like the production's sake.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, the most admirable qualities of it are that those are really well staged and like edited and paced and everything.
Yeah.
But all of the like actual investigation stuff ranges from like silly, goofy police procedural comedy to, like just straightforward procedural that you would usually get with a slasher like this.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go full slasher, really. It's more proto-slasher, seems like the best phrase to describe it. But yeah, neat framing device, but kind of an overall weakish movie because of its weird tonal stuff.
Yeah.
I gave it a 3 out of 5.
Gave it a 3 out of 5. Can you believe it?
I can believe it, yeah. After that, I watched Werewolves Within, which is a comedy from 2021 directed by Josh Rubin. I heard about it back when it came out. It's got Sam Richardson in it, which is pretty cool. I'm a big fan of him. And I want to see him in more comedies, like other than like TV shows, because he's great in like The After Party. He plays the lead in that. He's great, and I Think You Should Leave.
Yeah.
And he's really fun here, too.
Definitely.
Unfortunately, like, the script is a little... I think Juliet described it in her review as, like, liberal Trump-era humor. Like, that's... the whole thing is, like, built on that. Like, I don't know. It kind of works, but it can get a little overbearing at times, and I think that really does hamper my enjoyment of it a lot.
Yeah.
And the fact that, like, generally it's a little limited on its actual like horror indulgence. Like, it's generally spooky and like it works well as like just an ensemble movie, kind of like Knives Out does.
Yeah.
Which it very much feels like a riff on Knives Out, which is strange. I mean, I guess it did come out afterwards, but yeah, it was a good time. Generally, I liked the cast. And the screenplay is generally admirable. I don't know if I should spoil it because there's like a pretty big spoiler.
No, I
at
wouldn't.
the end.
I wouldn't. It's pretty new.
Yeah, it's pretty darn new. But yeah, I gave it a 3 out of 5. A lot of the technical stuff is just solid enough that I was like kind of buying into it. I was along for the ride,
Yeah.
I gave it 3 out of 5. Good time.
On the 22nd, I watched, or rather rewatched yet again. I just talked about this, but I rewatched it again, this time with my girlfriend, because she had not seen it. Crimson Peak, which I'm working on a video about right now.
Hey.
Right this very minute. I'm typing out the script as I speak.
He's typing it on his phone, yeah.
No, but yeah, I just wanted to rewatch it. It's a classic for me. It's one that I would watch it anytime, any place. It's not a perfect film by any means. It has its flaws. I think honestly, even my 4.5 is a bit generous. It's probably like a solid 4-star film.
Yeah.
But I really admire it for what it is and what it's doing historically. It's not Del Toro's best. It's not even close to his best. But I think it is memorable and worth note. And I think it's really, really fun and spooky, and it's got great atmosphere.
I think you can just tell, like, literally the biggest reason I admire Crimson Peak is you can just tell how much Del Toro loves it.
Yeah.
Like that.
There's so much love put into it.
Yeah, like every scene, you can just tell he's so into it.
Yeah, so I gave it, again, a 4.5 out of 5. I love Crimson Peak. Great stuff.
Cool. Late on the 22nd, I sat down and watched the Town That Dreaded Sundown, the 20. You're like, wait a minute, he already watched that movie, but it's the 2014 remake sequel thing, requel, if you will. But yeah, I don't know why it like interested me so much. But the Town That Dreaded Sundown is such an interesting artifact of like, like I said, like faux documentary filmmaking. Like they got a lot of very inexperienced local actors to work on the film. like the original one. Yeah. And it's a very interesting piece. It's not quite like close up or anything like that, but it's something like adjacent to that, less impressive than that.
Yeah.
So I was like really interested to see what a remake of it would look like. And what I was greeted with was like a Texas version of a Scream movie, which is very like funny, I think. And like honestly, I think one of the coolest things you can do with like a movie that like prides itself on how factual it is, if you go about making a very like, you know, slasher movie.
Yeah.
Like you can examine like the nature of true crime a little bit, at least offer like some sort of retrospective look at the production of the first one and the legacy it's had and like the hurt it might have caused back when it came out.
Yeah.
Because it was only like 20 years after the murders had initially happened that the movie came out.
Interesting.
Yeah. And like I said, this one examines that in a very direct way. Like the director's son is a character in this movie. Like it's a really neat artifact of like requel stuff when it comes to true crime. It like pulls a lot of its plot beats from something like Scream 2. I compared it a lot to like Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson's work that they did together on like Scream movies.
Kevin Williamson, I wonder if we're talking about him.
Yeah, dude, it's like such a meta slasher. Like, I don't know. It makes me so happy to see like something this thoughtful about like going about making a slasher movie. And even though it is basically made irrelevant by like Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson doing it so much better like a few years before this, it's still really cool. Like aesthetically, it's kind of doing something similar to Scream 4, where it has like that kind of hazy retro look to it, like that very intentionally.
Yeah.
I saw a bunch of people just like on Scream 4 saying that it looks ugly. I'm like, no. It has such a beautiful glow. You get so many like Dutch angles and just like really ambitious camera movements and staging and lighting. It's very clear that a lot of thought went into its cinematography, and I really love that about it. Yeah, it's really vicious and like introspective in a strange way, very meta. Yeah, cool movie. I'm like really fascinated by it, and I really want to watch it again. It's really awesome.
Neat.
Yeah, like I said in my review that it's like the best case scenario for a requel sort of thing for The Town That Dreaded Sundown. It's very cool to me.
Yeah.
I give it a 4 out of 5.
Then, mere hours ago,
Whoa.
we watched the 2023 film. Oh, I haven't added this to my ranking yet.
Whoa.
COBWEB.
COBWEB.
Samuel Bowden directorial debut.
Yeah, his debut.
With Antony Starr, hit The Boys actor.
Very funny.
And yeah, it's a weird one. It's a weird little film.
Yeah.
Didn't love it.
I don't know what to say about Cobweb. I admired the idea of Cobweb. I think like it's kind of playing up something that Del Toro might do, or something that was done in like Hatching, where it kind of tries to take on this like not quite theatrical, but like almost fairy tale approach to horror.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work here. Like I just literally think it's unsuccessful.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. It's kind of bad. Like it's not even bad, but it's kind of bad. I think it just feels like a big fumble in every department.
Yeah, that's a better way of putting it.
Like it's got good things here and there, but it just doesn't know what it wants to be. And it gets really muddled. I think the parents, the two actors that play the parents, Lizzie Kaplan and Anthony Starr, are really, really fun as the parents.
I don't know, man. Like, as fun as I think they could be, I just really don't like the way they go about writing all of their scenes.
I was about to say, but like, even that is kind of, well, I was going to say the performances are really fun, but even that is overshadowed by the fact that it doesn't feel that they know what to do with them. Because I think like Anthony Starr especially given like recent stuff with The Boys. Like he's a really, really powerful actor.
He's got a very interesting charisma about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that works well for something like this, theoretically.
But it just doesn't know what it wants to do with them as characters. It doesn't feel like it knows what it wants to do with anything. And then the twist comes out with like the horror monster, and it doesn't feel like it knows what it wants to do with that. And it really feels like it kind of has like the message of like, don't be deformed. That feels like the message of the film. And that really sucks. It's really bad.
It's weird
in that department in terms of like what the takeaway from the film is. There's some fun horror violence in this.
Yeah. I was actually gonna mention like if the whole thing was as fun as the finale is, like I think the finale actually has some like decent staging and like some fun scares and everything.
Yeah.
But like it's just the rest of the movie's so just completely unengaging to me. Like I just don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care about the rest of the film, which is a big strike against it in my book. But yeah, I don't know. Strange film.
Very
probably
strange.
Not. I probably won't ever revisit it.
What the heck?
Yeah, strange film. I probably won't ever revisit it. But, you know, I'm glad I finally watched it. I've been trying to, like, actually keep up with horror films a bit this year.
Yeah, which is interesting because this has been a big year for horror directorial debuts. And this is probably, unfortunately, my least favorite one.
Yeah, it makes me upset, really.
I could see Mr. Samuel becoming a lot better.
Yeah.
And, like, having some really fun ideas and, like, his direction growing. But this was just, it's not all there yet.
It's not for me.
It's not all there yet. But I would love to see Anthony Starr in more movies. Get him in some movies. He's fun.
Movies. But yeah, I give it a 2 out of 5.
Give it a 2.5 out of 5.
Not for me, but, you know, not like the death of movies or anything.
No. And that is what we watched.
It's what we watched, baby. This is I said before we started this, like, oh, it'll be a shorter episode.
I mean, it's technically shorter than what we've been putting out lately.
Yeah.
We just have 2 long-winded opinions now. We've been doing it for too long. It's just like YouTube or anything. Like, you do it enough and you just get longer and longer.
Alas. But yeah, you got to hear me rant and rave about The Town That Dreaded Sundown, my latest horror obsession.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was a very spooky season episode. Ooh. Go watch some spooky stuff. Go watch some Scooby-Doo.
Ignore the fact that we watched like 9 things on the 20th.
Right. Watch Crimson Peak if you're okay with what's in it. That's a really cool movie. Watch Evil Dead 2 if you're okay with what's in it.
Oh my goodness.
Go watch so cool. Killers of the Flower Moon in theaters.
Yes,
go do it.
Please
personally.
Go watch it in theaters.
Definitely go watch it.
Good.
In IMAX or Dolby, especially, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Go watch In the Mouth of Madness. That's a pretty cool film, and it's pretty clean. Yeah, I don't know. Go check it out.
Yeah, do be warned. As much as I praised The Town That Dreaded Sundown requel thing, it is not a very clean movie. So be warned.
Yeah. But go watch some good movies. Again, watch some Scooby-Doo. That's my big thing.
Yeah, dude. Scooby-Doo rocks.
Scooby-Doo rocks.
That should be the
we need a Kevin Williamson Scooby-Doo movie, and I mean we need it today.
Oh my goodness. That would be like the greatest film of all time, probably.
And we'll catch you guys next week.
Yeah.
Scream 6.
Scream 6.